يا عباد الله هبوا ونداء الحق لبوا فاعبدوه مخلصين.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, our dear viewers. Welcome to Stories of Devotion, a program where we invite various servants of this noble community, and most especially the missionaries, and then hear from them such inspirational stories, such inspirational incidents that happened in their life, and actually in this regard, as well as in this field of service. In today's episode, we have invited Hajj Muhammad Ali Kaire, who is the Amir and missionary in charge, Jamaat Ahmadiyya Uganda. Hajj Muhammad Ali Kaire Sahib is actually well known to be the first missionary who traveled to Rabwa, Pakistan and acquired more knowledge in religious studies. He has served Jamaat Ahmadiyya for more than 40 years, and this makes him the longest serving missionary in Jamaat Ahmadiyya Uganda. Today we are so fortunate and more grateful to the Lord Almighty who has enabled us to invite him in the studios of MTA. He was appointed to the office of Amir Jamaat Ahmadiyya Uganda in the year 2017, and he is still serving as the Amir up to date. Amir Sahib, you're welcome to Stories of Devotion.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Now, our viewers are very eager and waiting to know how Jamaat Ahmadiyya came into your family.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I'm Sheikh Muhammad Ali Kaire, currently the Amir of Jamaat Ahmadiyya Uganda. Incidentally, I was appointed Amir in December 2015. Jamaat Ahmadiyya in my family came way back in the 60s. My father had a relative living around Jinja who was an Ahmadi. His name was Ali Kiemba. Now, on several occasions, he used to invite him to come and attend Jamaat activities at Jinja. So it so happened once that that relative had to come and stay with us for quite some time. That gave him ample time to preach to my father. At that time, we were quite young. And my father was a muallim of the Sunni mosque around. He got interested, and he, with the several colleagues, joined Jamaat Ahmadiyya. And that in a village called Ibusu in Iganga district. That's how Jamaat Ahmadiyya came to our family.
That's very wonderful, how Jamaat Ahmadiyya came into his family. Now, before going into the missionary course, as we have said, Sheikh Saib, so can you briefly tell us how far you went with your secular education?
Actually, before you're going to Rabwa for missionary training, I not have much secular education as such. My father, by the time he joined the Jamaat, I was roughly in about P4. Then in holidays, I used to go to Jinja to get some religious training from one Sheikh Ibrahim Senfuma. Then when I was in my S2 senior secondary at Wandegea here, there was the opportunity of sending somebody to Pakistan to go and study in the Jamiatul Ahmadiyya in Rabwa. It so happened that I was the only one available at that time whose parents were ready to release to go and take up this course. So, by chance, I took up that chance and I was trained as a missionary. Not so much secular excellency you can mention
And how long did you spend in Pakistan?
In Pakistan, I spent 8 years, right from Umahida, as the setup of the education system was there. Then Ula, Thania, up to Sadisa, a total of about 8 years.
MashaAllah, that's great. So you have mentioned that actually you had went far with your secular education, and you stopped in senior 2. Our viewers too would like to know how you changed your mind and diverted from secular education to the missionary side.
Actually, when I was still in my secular education line, I was much more interested in being something like a doctor or an engineer. Now, when this opportunity came, I was briefed by my father, and I picked interest. In addition to that, also there was one sheikh who was the missionary in charge at that time, who was called Muhammad Ali Sufi. Having heard from him, I picked up interest in becoming a missionary. And when I went to Pakistan, I found out that it is more exciting to be a missionary than to be a doctor or an engineer or some other profession. Yeah.
In order to achieve your goal, you had to travel to Rabwa, Pakistan, and finally acquired more of religious knowledge. Please, how was your 8 years stay in a foreign land, in a country that doesn't belong to you? Or let's say, how was your stay in Pakistan?
You see, coming from relatively a not well-to-do family, here in my village and at home, we were trained from the younger age to face challenges and surmount problems. So when I went to Pakistan, there wasn't any much problem except to say the weather condition. During summer, it was a bit hot. During winter, it was a bit cold. Then in the beginning, I had some problem with the food. They had a lot of chilies. But then I get used to that. And it was normal. And I think all the time I cherished the time I stayed in Pakistan as a student. It was a wonderful experience.
And you didn't face any challenges, or like as a student, of course?
I have always mentioned this, that all my 8 years I spent in a society you could consider to be angelic society. All my fellow students, the elderly, the younger ones, and around Rabwa, they were so helpful, so well-wishing, so encouraging, so much so that I still remember having lived for 8 years amongst angels. It was a wonderful experience. I doubt whether some other missionaries did enjoy such excitement like what I passed through.
MashaAllah, that's wonderful. And these stories are really very important to every Ahmadi there, and even the non-Ahmadis. So if you'd like to reach us, you can also visit our website, www.alislam.org, for more about Jamaat Ahmadiyat. And you can also visit us at Africa at MTA.tv for more. We are with Al-Hajj Maulana Muhammad Ali Kaire in the studios, telling us how he went through, how he has served Jamaat Ahmadiyat, telling us what he went through and how far he has reached in this regard. Amir Sahib, how was your initial plans as the first native missionary? For we had missionaries, of course, in Uganda, but these were not Ugandans. Now, as the first Ugandan missionary, what were your plans to the development of Jamaat Ahmadiyya?
Thank you. It should be noted that having completed my studies, having attained the my doctorate, that Shahid, and also Molvi Fazal, when I came back, it so happened that Idi Amin regime, Idi Amin regime, had expelled and Ahmadi missionaries from Uganda, and the Jamaat by that time was banned. So the first few months of my return, I did not do much, but by the grace of Allah, just within 3 to 4 months, Idi Amin's regime was overthrown, and I was faced with a daunting task of putting the Jamaat together. We undertook exercises of visiting several members in different areas with the few members who were there at that time. Prominently, there was Sheikh Zakaria Kizito, the late. There was Al-Haji Sulaiman Amwanje, Al-Haji Sulaiman Sewanyana, Sheikh Shwaibu Nsera. With these people, we managed to move around and visit the members. Then I was settled in Jinja. From Jinja, I carried out 2 exercises simultaneously. In Jinja, I used to conduct dars. I gathered the members around, dars al-Quran, started teaching them. And during the month of Ramadan, I used to give dars from 10 o'clock, then a break for Zuhuri prayers, then continue up to Asri prayers. This attracted so many people during the month of Ramadan. In Kampala, I used to go every Saturday to educate the members who actually wanted to know much about the Jamaat. So that way I was able, one, to bring to me people who later on went to their different localities and studied the Jamaats around Jinja. And those in Kampala, I used also to impart religious information to them continuously. That's how I carried out that exercise, because all other missionaries had been withdrawn, had been expelled by the government, and the Americans withdrew them. I was alone. I had no mu'allimins. That's also how I trained my mu'allimins, giving darisi, again recruiting some younger men who are interested in Jamaat activities and Jamaat religious education. And by, I managed to come up with a Jamaat which is there today.
MashaAllah. A country where we had only Asian missionaries, and in this case, the regime that was there by then forced first all the Asians to leave the country, including our missionaries. And then the only missionary we had was Hajj Muhammad Ali Kaire, who's currently the Amir of Jamaat Ahmadi Uganda. He had to be very tactical in training and mentoring those who were closer to him, and brought them back. Actually, he brought them to the norm and sent them to various places and spread the message of Islam Ahmadiyat. Yes, Amir Sahib, we have seen the seizure and disturbances by the regime that was there at that moment. Did the Jamaat improvise, or did the Jamaat try and see or look into ways of having more missionaries who were the local missionaries? Because I understand you were the only missionary in Uganda, mainly a Ugandan missionary. So was there any plan of having more missionaries?
Before we get to that, I think there is another background we should know. So Idi Amin was a Muslim. By the time we took over the government, Jamaat Ahmadiyya was firing very well. We were printing our books. We had translated the Holy Quran in Uganda, which was not a small task. And during the first meeting with the Muslims, Ahmadis also were invited. And at that time, our Sheikh, Jalaluddin Qamar, was also invited. And he was even appointed to lead one of the sections in the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council when it was being formulated at that time. Later on, Idi Amin was told that Ahmadis are enemies of Islam, So you should distance yourself from them. And the reaction, you know very well that the banishment came in, and our property was confiscated, and even money on accounts also were frozen. Then, when I came back, that was the situation that all our mosques all over the country had been taken over by the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council. And the Asian missionaries, Pakistani sheikh, had been also kicked out. We had some mu'allimins who had been trained earlier by our missionaries. Those also were actually sent home because there was no way of giving them allowances, monthly allowances. They went back to their localities. When I came back, I tried to bring some of them back. But many had got involved in their domestic activities, their personal businesses. They couldn't actually give much time to Jamaat work. So I had to start right from the very beginning. When I started that class I mentioned at Jinja, I targeted some young men whom I trained as missionaries in the very beginning. Among them, there was Sheikh Mubarak Kagabe, there was Sheikh Hassan Tamzade, there was Sheikh Kasim Saba, there was Sheikh Sarhan Kavma, the late, there was Sheikh Isa Abdul Nur, also is the late, there was Sheikh Elias, also is deceased. These sheikhs, I tried my level best to put as much into them as possible. Later on, Sheikh Jalaluddin Kamar returned. When he came, I sent these children to him to train them more, and many of them are still serving. That was the beginning of training missionaries to work as mu'allimin and the Jamaat Ahmadiyya once again. Later on, at SETA, we established a mu'allim training center, and many of those young men were sent there, and eventually we started producing our own sheikhs. Later on also, some other sheikhs joined us from Pakistan, and this actually made our work more easy. Up to this level, we have a complete Jamiatul Mubashirin at SETA, which is now producing missionaries with diplomas in religious education.
So apart from your return, how long did it take Jamaat Ahmadiyya to send other missionaries to Pakistan?
As soon as I came back, it took very little time to get a good batch of young men who were willing to go and take on that course to become missionaries. You see, the concept of a missionary or a mu'allim or a sheikh in Uganda at that time was that a missionary is somebody, or a mu'allim or a sheikh is somebody who simply knows a few sentences of Arabic and keeps reciting these sentences, and that's all. When I came back, having been trained by Jamaat Ahmadiyya for 8 years, having attained a doctorate in secular, religious education, you see, comparative study of religion, you see, they found me to be a top-class scholar. So parents were attracted also to send their children. Even the younger men I interacted with also wanted to become top-class scholars. So we got a very big batch of these younger men, and we sent them immediately. And this continued for quite some time. And many of them are still here. Many of them will be mentioning. We sent Sheikh Yusuf Ali Kaire is still serving, currently the principal of Jamiatul Mubashirin. We sent Sheikh Isa Abidiye Hassan. We Sheikh Hafiz Elias Kisawe. We sent Sheikh Israel Rutariga. We sent Sheikh Faisal Buyonje. You see, that is now he's working as the Afsajar Sasalana. So the actual exercise was interesting because the parents and the younger men had picked interest in becoming a missionary, and they felt being a missionary is better than being a professional in these other secular professions.
In the beginning, you did mention about your meeting with the third Khalifa by then. So, of course, it's very known that you had, as the first missionary, you had to keep in touch and in communication with the Khalifa who was there by then. How was your communication with him, and was it possible that you would communicate to the Khalifa monthly?
Not monthly, but always whenever you felt like meeting a Khalifa. You see, Jamaat Ahmadiyya is organized in such a way that even the lowest member of the society, so long as he's an Ahmadi, and he lives within the locality where a Khalifa is, there is organized program. You can go and apply to meet the Khalifa, and they give you an appointment. So whenever we used to wish to meet the Khalifa, we used to get this chance. I could meet Huzur in a month maybe 3 times or 4 times. And during holidays, when we are not busy with our studies, we could meet him every after 2-3 days. That arrangement was there. So it was a frequent visit with Khalifa. And even he himself, during Jamia time, during the college time when we were studying, he used to come and visit the Jamia, and he used to meet us and shake hand and talk to every student. It was so lovely. That's the beauty of Jamaat Ahmadiyya, that the Khalifa, you see, would come and meet the ordinary people, ordinary members, even students like ourselves. He could come and discuss a range of issues with us, you see.
On written here, when you were a missionary in Uganda, of course, you had to again keep in touch with the Khalifa. So how was the communication again?
Yeah, when I came back, it is good that you have mentioned that. Communication was really difficult. In those days, we don't have phones. There's the mobile phones, even those landline phones also were not easily available. In addition to that, writing a letter, it could take several months to reach, and the response also would take several months. So it was indeed a difficult exercise of keeping in touch with the Khilafat. Thanks to the MTA, thanks to the modern day communication activity systems. But in those days, really we faced very difficult time.
You could just hear that the Khalifa is there. You can't write anything to him.
You could write something. When the reply comes, you would be moving around, reading that reply you have received the members. You could go to one Jamaat and the members gather and you read to them. I received a letter from Huzur. Huzur says this and that. Then you move on to another Jamaat. You do the same thing until MTA came about. That everybody, every day, whenever he likes or whenever she likes, can easily see and hear what the Huzur is saying.
MashaAllah, that's great. And in this era, writing a letter to the Khalifa is more easier. You could write a letter today and receive it even before a month ends. Jazakallah khairan, Amir Sahib. During the presidency of Eid Amin Dada, which you witnessed as you have stated, Jamaat Ahmadiyya went through a very difficult time, which included seizing Jamaat mosques and property and etc. actually. How did the Jamaat manage to go through those days where most of the property were seized, mosques were taken, and most of the houses or the belongings to the Jamaat were seized? How did the Jamaat manage to go through those days?
Shortly before returning to Uganda, having completed my Shahid, I happened to meet Hadrat Khalifatul Masih Athalith, and I mentioned this to him that I'm going back, but our Jamaat is banished. Our property has been confiscated, but I'm going back. He said, don't worry, you go, everything shall be all right. Now, when I returned, as I have earlier told you, I spent a few months in the Idi Amin Dada's regime. After those few months, you see, actually, the regime was overthrown. Now, as it was overthrown, as I told you, the members who were around, had a task of once again making the Jamaat active. The first step when we heard that the government has been overthrown was immediately to take over our property. It was a small team of about 5 to 6 people, but I have never seen such an active team in my life. We were so active that on the very first Juma, having heard that the government of Idi Amin had been overthrown, we took over our main mosque at Kampala. We came with all our children, our wives, and cleaned the place, and conducted Juma prayers there. The next few days, we traveled to Jinja, we traveled to Masaka, to all other places. You see, some of our members, most especially Hajj Sulaiman Mwanje and Hajj Sulaiman Sewanyana and Sheikh Zakaria Kizito had vehicles. So we used to move in those vehicles from time to time, checking on our people and waking them up. In about 2-3 months, the Jamaat was back on its feet, you see? Yes.
I thought that would have been a very hard task. A property that has been seized, to recover it back to the hands of Jamaat Ahmadiyya. Wasn't that a bit difficult? Didn't you meet some challenges in doing so?
Yes. These challenges actually came notably, when Idi Amin was ruling Uganda, he was so tactful. Many have not actually sensed this. He usually put these mullahs, the sheikhs, to be actually political leaders. He appointed them to be chiefs of Magomborora, of Masaza, etc. So having overthrown his government, these people were not changed immediately. They remained in their places, their positions. And most of them were actually UPC members. So the return of Obote actually was a revival of the UPC party. And these people still were there with their ill feelings toward the Jamaat. So whenever we used to go to preach, these people used to cause problems, claiming that we are trying to sabotage the new leadership, the new government, and they were in the leadership. So we had to negotiate our way around. Many of the members were even arrested and taken to the Magombororas and some other areas. And we used to go there and discuss this matter with the leaders, and they could understand our case, and they found us, in fact, not guilty of any misconduct. So we had these challenges in the first days of yes, in the beginning. After that, you see, we not have any problem, most especially when, again, your UPC government was overthrown, a new regime came in, and we are free up to now. We are conducting our activities.
MashaAllah, that's great. You can see that it is just out of Allah's immense grace and mercy that Jamaat Ahmadiyya has gone through some hard times, but then it has also made success within every possible way. Amir Sahib, this has been a very wonderful talk with you. It has been a very great day for us to invite you in the studios of MTA and hear a word or two from you. Now, as we conclude this episode, what advice would you give to the members of Jamaat Ahmadiyya?
My time, 41 years, I've been giving advices. But experience also has something. for the members and maybe missionaries. You know, when you see a missionary moving around and another missionary also moving around, there is a remarkable difference. At times, the non-missionary, in his head, he is carrying problems. And the missionary is carrying solutions to those problems. My simple advice to that, to members most especially, always consult the missionaries in matters pertaining to religious and secular activities. You will benefit a lot. This is the little advice now, through my experience, I can give to non-members. Do consult the missionaries. They may solve many of your problems which you may think that are not solvable. Well, that's all.
That has been a very great advice, and if you take it, trust me, you'll not regret. Always consult your missionaries in each and everything that you go through, and inshallah it will be better. I remain Nasir Ahmad Sonko. That has been a very wonderful program. See you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
يا عباد الله هبوا ونداء الحق لبوا فاعبدوه مخلصين